I don't know who needs to hear this, but being a homeowner is not it. Being a homeowner does not determine your success. It's not the American dream, whatever the fuck that is. It ain't the picket fence that we've been sold all our lives, you know? It's a lie fabricated by the banks, in my opinion, to fill their pockets even more. Because when you're renting a house or an apartment, you're not paying escrow, you're not paying for taxes and insurance, you're not paying for HOA, which that's a fucking scam in itself. Technically, this house that I took out a 30-year mortgage on is technically not mine. It's the bank's. If I don't pay my property taxes, if I don't pay my insurance, if I don't pay HOA, they'll put a lien on my house and buy a house. I don't think ever in our lifetime was the right time to purchase a home. Maybe back in the Lewis and Clark days, maybe in the hunter and gathering days, maybe back in the day when I could trade some rice for a piece of land, that was the time to purchase a home. That was the time. But not in this lifetime. I'm still trying to figure out what the American dream is, but it's not homeownership. And the argument of equity is just like the stupidest thing in the world to me, because how much money am I really getting back? How much is my property gonna go up in 30 years? Best case scenario, you buy a house that does not need any improvements, no renovations, no customization. You love the house as is. And I'm talking, you don't have to paint the walls, you don't have to change the floors, you don't have to change the counters, you don't have to add blinds, you don't have to tint the windows, you don't have to do any of those things because you love the house as is. You don't have to add a fence. Most people take out a 30-year mortgage in order to purchase a home. In those 30 years, chances are you're going to put some money into this house to make it your own.
Most of the time, by the time you pay off a mortgage on a 30-year mortgage, you're going to more than double, more than triple pay for that house. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about financing, the argument when it comes to equity is an argument against renting, but then you have to take into consideration lifestyle. I do think that property taxes, the amount that people pay in property taxes is a scam, because I know that property taxes is a thing that then supports your schools, it supports your community colleges, it supports the police, you know what I'm saying? The amount of revenue that's bringing in. So some level of property tax could be okay. But the amount that people are paying in property taxes and the way that they assess it is a scam. And she absolutely is correct that it's not a scam, but it is 30-year mortgages, and the amount of time that you finance for is set up for the banks to be able to make a ton of money off the interest that you're paying. And so I've been telling people this for years. Nobody wanted to listen, and so you have to do a cost-benefit analysis to figure out what your lifestyle is going to be. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a negative situation on a regular basis. And most people have too much house for the money. That is where the real issue is that we are not. And that's amazing that people, it's funny because you never start to hear this conversation until people start to get under duress, until they're house poor, until they're upset and they can't move, when they can't sell the house for the amount that they want to sell it for, when they tired of paying the mortgage and the property taxes, or they get laid off. Then this is when you start to have these conversations. But most of the time, people do not have these conversations until they're under duress. And when I was telling people, hey, you need to be careful with how it is that you look at this thing. Are you taking into consideration the property taxes? Why are you doing a 30-year mortgage? More importantly, why are you buying more house than you can afford? Or why are you moving it up to whatever it is that the bank is saying that you can afford based off of a percentage of what you, a percentage of whatever it is that you take on? Why are you doing this? People are looking at me and they saying, oh, no, no, it's always better. Okay, now you see a bunch of people saying that they house poor. And then I'm not even going to talk about HOAs. I would never. I only own one property that have an HOA, and it's relatively cheap. I think I pay, if I'm not mistaken, I can't even remember how much I pay, but it's pretty cheap. It's really, really cheap. But the point is that it is set up by the banks. They want you to finance for 30 years because if you start looking at your house payment and how much is going towards interest, it's front loaded with interest. And so you don't even start to eat into the principal if you're just putting in the whatever payment that they making. And then that's when people start to complain because they banking on the house going up in value for them to have equity, higher equity into the house for them to justify the purchase. Then you're not taking into consideration Property taxes, maintenance. Maintenance is an additional cost. If you got to replace the roof, water heaters, if it doesn't get cold, if you're not getting air conditioning, right? HVAC and all of that stuff, electrical work, and then you got to update the property because it's gonna get old and the floors is gonna get worn down, and you're gonna want new countertops and all of this other type of stuff, right? And then you got grass and all of these different things that basically eat away at you. And so I tell people that if you can, practice group economics as much as you possibly can, because that is the way you're going to generate, save and stack the majority of your money, and just stack and invest. And if you get to the point to where you decide that you want to break out, then try to get the house based off of your lifestyle, right? You want to be able to do what you want to do. You don't want to have to sink all of your money into a property.
Time you're ready to sell that house, the equity that you get on it is probably what you've put into the house.
And you got to pay real estate agent fees.
I mean, I'm talking taxes, insurance, HOA, all of the things that go into home ownership. Wait, don't get me started with HOA, because when I was looking for a house, I was looking for a community with HOA, because I heard everywhere that that's how you keep the community clean. But when nobody is actually abiding by the HOA rules and HOA is not doing anything about it, then your value of your home decreases because Fulana doesn't want to cut her grass. An HOA that you pay for quarterly or monthly or whatever is not doing anything about it. So yeah, maybe you have an upstairs neighbor that has like 6 kids running around at all hours of the day. Maybe you would like to play your music a couple decibels higher. Maybe you want a backyard. But the issues do not stop once you're a homeowner. They're very similar, just in a different way. When you have complaints about your upstairs neighbor, downstairs neighbor in an apartment when you're renting, you can take it up with the landlord, you can take it up with the front desk, or you can be confrontational with your neighbor if you want. You have choices. When you're a homeowner, you have to, take it upon yourself, because let me tell you, HOA ain't gonna do shit about it. And yeah, the whole backyard thing. I have a backyard. I still can't let my dog run around loose because I have to purchase a fence, a $7,000, $9,000 fence. Really think about your decision to purchase a home. Weigh everything out. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of shadiness. I've worked for I worked for a very shady bank. Like, the banks are not your friends. They're not. They don't care about you. They just care about getting your money, some way or the other. The fuck?
Yeah, because it's a business. I work for a bank too. And they absolutely care about getting as much money as they possibly can. And they want you to finance as much as you can possibly afford, because they don't want you to default, because then they would have to take the house back, but then they would have to go and sell it again. And so it becomes cyclical. And if you can't afford the property taxes, that's one of the biggest things, because even after you finish paying off the house, if you finish paying off the house, and most people's goal is to pay off the house before they retire, so that they can allocate the majority of their income towards food, necessities, surviving, going on vacation. If you are a person that has been saving for retirement, that is the way that you want to play it. But most people are not playing it that way, but you still got to pay property taxes for the entirety of the time. And then people want to downsize most of the time because they raise their kids in a big house. But you don't need that big of a house once the kids move out and they go and live their own lives and they go and do their own thing. And so it's a lot of other factors that go into it. And also, real estate agents, they're not your friends either. They are not there to teach you financial literacy. I cannot tell you how many times people have purchased a spot and built the house from like a large home builder, a Pulte Homes or Lennar Homes or something like that, which I'm not really a fan of those places either. And then their property taxes go up and explode because they were assessing you property taxes on the land and not based off of the built property. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love y'all. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.